Welcome to another episode of Watercolor Instructions with me. So I'm going to do a lily flower today. So this is a painting I saw from an artist called Jasmine Wong. I think she's a Taiwanese artist. I randomly found this picture on Facebook. So it's a nice composition, and I felt it's something I can replicate, and then it's something easy enough for our beginners to do. We'll see how it goes. So to see all my materials and all the colors I use in the palette, check out the descriptions and you'll see all the links for my materials I use in this painting. So mainly all the flowers are in the golden ratio aspect. So if you don't know what it is, either you're looking at one of these four corners as your focal point, and this painting has most of its focal point in this corner. If I just erase the focal point. So there's about 3 or 4 flowers. I'm going to just pay attention on the main flower. So the flower is somewhat that size, so just to get a little bit of volume. Okay, that's the main flower, and then you get your palette. Oh, sorry, what am I saying? It's not palette, it's petal. And a little bit of stem and other things. So there's another flower. So think of it as a semicircle. And the red. Okay. And a couple of lily buds. So it's got a really thick stem. One more flower at that angle. It helps to just do a shape. And one more over here. So looking down. You can see a stem, a few more flowers, and there's another flower here. Okay, so that's a good composition, and then also this one is a slightly evening theme. So let's see how it goes. So there's a leaf, there's a few leaves, so could be anything, but so you can see that's a nice pad. Okay, so this is our theme or flowers. So I'm going to just use, there's not much details to it. You just start with ultramarine blue and a little bit of turquoise and start going a little more heavily. So I'm going to just get a couple more brush. I've been using these calligraphy brush. They do an excellent job. So I'm going to use a slightly bigger calligraphy brush. Ultramarine blue. I'll add more colors and a little bit of tallow blue. So don't be shy, apply generously. So I'm dipping in gray. When it comes over here, I'm just being mindful to leave the whites. So a lot more dark. And then I continue with my I'm just dragging again straight lines just as so that it just looks like a little more reflection. Okay, I'm not too worried about the edges for the leaves, but just the flower, I'm just being a little more careful over the flowers. And so continuing, I'm just adding a little more cerulean blue. And a little bit gray. That's fairly thick, so but I'm just continuing. So add another flower. I'm just paying attention. Probably this is one of the easier paintings for beginners to do. Well, also I keep saying that it's easier painting for beginners, but you don't need drawing skills. When I say easy, I'm talking about subjects which doesn't need a lot of drawing skills. So a few drawings which requires perspective for cityscapes, but this particular painting, I'm sure a basic simple drawing could do, as long as you're focusing on the technique. So almost. Okay, and I focus, trying to do a few more things. I'm just mixing in a little bit of cerulean and cobalt blue at this stage. I'm going to come in a little careful here, just to retain the shape of the flower buds. Starting a little bit of Algerian. So you want to add shadows a little bit. I might come in, add a little more shadows. That's basically it. For the first bit. So simple but effective. Also at this stage what I'm going to do is I'm going to just add a little more texture. Adds a little mystery in the night. Something's going on, so you don't know what it is, but just enough details. Chill. Okay, so I'm happy with that. So I'm gonna move with my greens. So I got 3 greens: sap green, spring, and an emerald green. So I'm gonna have a mix of a little darker green, and then I also have a phthalo green as well. So it's gonna be a combination of and a little bit of turquoise just to give a couple of leaves a lighter tone. I'm not too worried about overlapping. That's perfectly fine. So again, I'm just paying attention to make sure I leave the whites for the flower, which I'm going to come back and then do it as a last option. This is probably one of those paintings where you hardly need to switch brush. Maybe I'm going to use for petals, but most of the paintings is just one big. You pick a big brush and you continue with it. So pay attention. So as you see, the paint is quite thicker consistency because I don't want it to run on the blue. So I'm just controlling the water level. A different shade. I'm gonna add a little more gray. Okay, same thing. Needs a little more water. Okay, so don't forget, wherever there's a leaf, you want to add a little more shadow. So a little bit of shadow. Makes it more realistic. And I'm going to soften any sharp edges. At this stage, there's a soft edge here, dark edge. Let it drip. Okay. Okay. I think it's a good stage where I'm going to switch to a slightly smaller brush. When I say smaller, fairly big. So I just want to clean a little bit of yellow. Too much green on that. Okay, so a little bit of white. Really check the color. I want it to be a little more white. Okay, so let me check that. That's fine. So at this stage, I worry about the colors mixing, so I'm going to just dry it. Okay, let me check the camera if it's still in focus. Yes, it is. Alright, so if you notice there's a little bit of green. That's alright. So coming back to really light yellow. So go yellow, all the petals. Yeah, a little more. Okay. And a reddish. Okay, and also don't forget to add a little more shadow to all the reds. You don't want it to be single color. Okay. The stem. And then look for missing places. I'm going to just come and add a little more white to all the places, but not right now. So that place needs a little more touch up. So I'm just adding a few more black highlights to make that pop. Every time, remember, every time you want to make something lighter, add a lot darker color next to it. Makes it look a lot darker. Same here, I'm going to just add a few more. A little more dark on the side. And the last flower, a little more dark. So I'm just suggesting some sort of hint, saying that there's some dark leaves in the background, or something's going on. Okay, so the red under the flower is not dark enough, so I'm going to just add a little more color to the red. Certain areas, it's just not too, it's not popping out. That's a beauty, you can always add a little more colors if it's just not. That's a bit too much. Not to forget, a little more shadows. Oh, we missed a little bit of yellow. To this flower. Okay, I'm gonna add some white highlights. The flower looks too simple, so I'm just adding a few highlights just to make the individual petals. So clean your brush. This is not the first time I've made a mistake by picking a random brush, especially when it's white, not cleaning it. Tiny bit of water. Okay. I'm just gonna, oops, too much water. I'm just blending in a little more. You can't, I don't know whether you can catch it, but it has some strong edges. So I'm just blending it just to make the edges a little soft. Okay, and the last thing I want to do is add a little more texture to the center. So taking a little bit red, yellow, and holding that, so that brush freckles is too small. I'm just going to make it slightly big. Yeah, much better. Okay, so almost completing. So the leaves look a little bit flat, so I'm going to just add a little more texture or 3 dimensions to it. So what I'm going to do is add some shadow. So suggesting that there is a shadow casted on that particular leaf. There's a little more shadow on this leaf. There's a little more shadow there, there. So okay, that's about it. I'm gonna just add, final thing is, these look too clean. It needs a bit of shadow on the petal itself. So a little bit of yellow ochre. So little shadow of the petal itself. You might think it's not visible, but that's just that one. Makes a flower from 2D to 3D. Squinting my eyes, which you can't see. I'm just adding a little more shadow. And softening the edge. Okay. I'm happy with it. Only thing I'm going to do is add a little more shadow to that particular flower to make it pop up a little more. So does this flower, needs a little more shadow. I'm squinting my eyes, checking if that's enough. So same thing, I'm going to just come in, add a little more shadow, and I'm constantly squinting my eyes to check the colors. So that's fine. A little more on this side. and okay, so that's my painting. A little more. And a little more shadow over here. Okay, it's time to dry and complete the painting. I hope you captured the most important bit is to making sure adding darks to make the flower pop up a little more and just gives a little more texture and effect on the leaves. And then don't leave the leaves very flat. Add some shadows, add some texture, make it a little more interesting. And always I'm looking at sharp edges and rough edges, so places where it needs clean edges and places where it needs to be roughed. So I'm always juggling and squinting my eyes because I'm sitting so close. The best way to check the painting looks good is to constantly keep squinting to check if the light and darks are correct. Okay, so if I reveal the painting, always my fun bit. Let me just check if it is in the frame. Yes, it's in the frame. That's the end of the painting. Hope you enjoyed it. And there's a similar technique for most of the flowers. Help me out if you're new to the channel, subscribe. Until next time, keep watercoloring and bye.